is quite a strong, defiant thing to say in the face of the people and the company that we keep this morning. Why is it wallowing and not remembering and honouring?
I don't know if I should use the word wallowing. I have no disrespect at all for soldiers doing their job or for the past. I mean, every year of my life, I remembered the First World War. And I just think at a certain point you have to say enough is enough. We don't remember the Crimean War, the Boer War, the Napoleonic War. We're the only country that does this year after year after year. We ought to, I mean, the art is forgetting as well as remembering. Most of the wars in Europe have been caused by too much remembering the past, too many grievances. And I think I've got no disrespect for what's going on today. The question is, when do you stop? Do you literally go on looking at it's always about the Germans, the hated Germans. We have to look to the future, not the past. The constant reference back to remembrance, when no one alive can remember. This is an artificial, state-sponsored remembrance.
Is it not right and proper that we educate young people about the magnitude of sacrifice made?
Primary school children are being asked to reenact trench warfare. This is not history. It's a very peculiar sort of remembrance of a particular horrific event, largely because it was so horrific.
Okay.
I think you're quite right. You should remember the past. But remembering is also about forgetting. I keep on about this. You've got to know where you're going to move on from.
OK, let's bring in Brian. Brian, you got the military cross. You served your country with great valour. You don't agree with this. Why?
Look, the men and women of the 20th century give everything to what we stand for today. And to put a sale-by date on that, in my opinion, is overly disrespectful. Just to get rid of that, like, as Simon says, stop wallowing in the past. And yeah, for me, remembrance is a time for reflection, a time to remember my family, my ancestors, my regiment's forebears is overly important. I personally laid 2 fellow soldiers to rest in 2004. You know, rolling that flag up, Union Jack, and passing it over to the families of Christopher Raymond and Leo Callaghan was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and I can't forget that. I've got to continue to remember in them sacrifices.
And there are people right now, servicemen and women, fighting for this country to defend our freedoms, our democracy. My brother's one of them. He's in active service at the moment, right? And it's not just about remembering people that died in the world wars. Actually, it's about acknowledging the sacrifices that are ongoing, isn't it? I mean, isn't that also part of it?
We have an Army Day in June. I mean, we do that.
But it's one day, Simon, on the 11th that week. And not only that, we can actually get together. I don't see soldiers who I'd served with for many years for a hell of a long time, but that one day a year we get together, we show our respect together, and then we turn around and kind of walk our separate ways.
Simon, when you sit alongside Brian, and he has tears in his eyes because remembrance is about not just, as you say, a fixation on the Germans in the Second World War or the First World War, but about his active service, his loss, the people from his regiment who made the ultimate sacrifice in Iraq or in Afghanistan. You know, to say that we're wallowing in it.
We were told that was what Army Day was for. That was exactly what Army Day was for, was to remember the people in the army and the sacrifice they made. This began with being about the First World War. It was changed, but it was originally
expanded, hasn't it?
So that what harm does it cause, Simon, really? I mean, I don't understand the harm. If people are reminded on an annual basis that this is what happened, these are the people who gave the great sacrifice, these are the lessons we should learn. Actually, what is wrong with that? I mean, I don't see any downside.
Well, it's in one sense, it's a distortion of history. And we're not remembering peace, we're remembering war. We're not remembering the mistakes we made.
We're remembering the fight for peace, aren't we?
Yeah, why have you chosen these 2 wars?
Because they were the 2 biggest.
Well, why not remember the mistakes we made after the First World War, which caused the Second World War?
But with respect, we're not just remembering those 2 wars. We've just heard how many people are remembering more recent conflicts.
And when we can remember, I'm entirely here with Brian. I really am. I mean, when people have suffered grief and they want to share that grief with the nation, I have no argument with that at all. We've chosen a particular event in the past, which has become a national celebration of this war. It really has. It's all about the trenches.
Why are you wearing a poppy today?
I'm wearing a poppy out of respect for the people around here.
Who?
All of you, I was asked to.
Would you choose not to?
It's a personal choice.
Oh, yes. I mean,
It seems a little perverse. You talk about not wanting to wallow in it, but that is the symbol
I have no objection
of Remembrance Day, isn't it?
Piers, this is a celebration of centenary, which I support.
Right.
The question should be stopped now. That's the question I was asked. I think we should.
Well, all remembrance, Simon.
Well-
So it will come into the 21st century of the Falklands, Afghanistan, Iraq, Northern Ireland, so on and so forth. What we're just gonna? Are you going to be the bearer of bad news to the families and saying we should stop remembering?
I'm not bearing news to anybody. I think people's grief ought to be respected.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a national celebration or a national grief, I've got more doubts about. But of recent conflicts, and particularly the point was endlessly made when David Cameron gave £50 million to support this day, it was about learning a lesson. I want to know what lesson we learned. We don't learn lessons by simply celebrating wars.
Brian, do you think we've learned lessons?
I think we continue to learn lessons all the time. And, you know, we don't, as soldiers, we don't choose to go to war. War is brutal. We never celebrate war. War is carnage, and that's the bottom line. However, when that choice is made, we have to commit and go. And then we get back and we kind of reconfigure, have a look at the lessons learned, and we should be doing that.
Do you feel let down sometimes?
No, because I chose to serve this great nation. I chose that path, and I would do it again tomorrow. And I would fight and give everything as my ancestors did in the 20th century and the 21st century.
Just to remind people who may not know your story, you were awarded the Military Cross as one of Britain's highest awards for gallantry, following courageous leadership under enemy fire in Iraq in the heat of a lethal close-quarters battle. Fighting outnumbered, you seized the initiative, took a split-second decision to lead your men into the teeth of enemy fire in the first bayonet charge by British soldiers in 25 years. Leading from the front, you put your own life in great danger. Under your command, Brian's men defeated the enemy without sustaining any serious casualties themselves. Their actions that day saved many other soldiers' lives. So that's indicative of the kind of sacrifice that people make. And I don't think Simon would in any way be looking to denigrate what you've done. I know that from having talked to you before privately about this kind of thing. Thank you for what you did that day.
Thank you
to everyone who's currently serving.
And thank you to my men that day as well, because without them, I probably wouldn't be sat here, Piers, if I'm honest.
I totally support that. I just hope we do learn some lessons, not just go on and on and on, year after year. Will we never stop?
I don't think we should, personally, but it's an interesting debate, and there'll be people, I'm sure, with views on both sides. I think you can never remember enough, actually, given the scale of what went on in the last century. And you should learn more, but I don't think you can ever remember enough.